Well, g'day folks, I'm Keith Jobson and welcome to yet another video, yet another product review for the KTM 500. This product review is going to interest a lot of people because it does solve one of the big problems, one of the big concerns with turning this bike into a proper adventure bike. So let's show you what the product is. I'll just zoom in a bit. It's on the bike. See if you can see it. Zoom in, hang on. Swivel over this way and yes, it's a rack. This rack is from Globetrottin in the US. Now a lot of you are going to be shaking your head at me going, why have you put a rack on this bike? You've gone so long without one. So I want to cover off why I've chosen the rack. I want to cover off a little bit about the install process. The main thing I want to do for you today is to show you how different luggage systems fit on this rack. Now I reckon I've got about 5 luggage systems in the shed there. I'm going to fit them onto this and we're going to see exactly how different luggage systems sit and fit on the Globetrottin rack. So why did I buy a rack? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One was I just wanted to be able to carry all of my luggage without wondering if the subframe was ever going to collapse on me. Now, I'm not saying that there's problems. I've not heard of problems with subframes breaking on these later model KTMs, but I just didn't want to be the first. Honestly, 95% of my riding is going to be with day bags, like you can see over the back there, the small day bags. So there's not going to be much weight on it most of the time. But when it is loaded up, then my mind will be at ease knowing that I've done what I can to take that weight off that subframe. The Globetrottin rack has been tested to carry 27 kilos. That's about 60 pounds of luggage. That's quite a lot, and I reckon that'll cover me just nicely. The second reason for wanting a rack is that it just gives me a few more options to like wrap a strap right around the whole bag and the rack and just pull the whole lot in a lot tighter. When I go to fit up these luggage systems, you'll see just how that works. The third reason is, well, I'm kind of just tired of looking at scratched up plastics. Like these plastics, I put these on like 6 months ago and they're all scuffed up already. And that's only from using the small bags up there. That's not any real weight, it's just the bags rubbing on them. It's just like sandpaper. So after deciding I wanted a rack, started to have a look and see what's out there. There's a few options. True North Motos, they do a rack for the KTM 500 series, but only for the 2020 and onwards models. They don't do one for this one. This is a 19. There's a few other ones around, like from Tusk and from Nomad, but they're a bit small. And they're basically just a top plate that goes on the back. Not really any point to them. If you're trying to get weight off the subframe, they're not going to do it. So after checking out a few options, wasn't terribly impressed with what I could see, but someone left a comment on one of my videos to have a chat to George from Globetrottin Racks. He had bought a rack from him and was impressed with it, no problems with it, so that's exactly what I did. Sent George an email with what I wanted. George sent me back a few photos of his bike and the rack on it, and I worked out, the options that would work for me. So he got it done and sent me this rack. Now when it arrived, I was a little bit shocked, I suppose, at just how light it was. The standard rack is just a bit over 2 kilos, and yet it can carry 27 kilos. I had a chat to George about how he did that. He said that was basically his goal. He wanted to create an extremely light but extremely strong product. He's got an engineering background. He bends all the tubes himself. It's taken him many, many versions to get where it is today. Now there's a few options you can choose, and you can also get a pannier version. It has an extra loop of steel on it to add more support for the larger bags, obviously more weight, but this is just a standard one, and this one has the daisy loops and giant loop mounts on it as well. The install itself is actually pretty straightforward. There's only a handful of mount points on there that you have to worry about. You're going to have to remove the seat, obviously, to get to the top mounting bolts up here. I found it easier to remove this right-hand side cover so I could get to the exhaust mount bolt to get this little support bracket in there. By the look of the photos that he sent me for his bike, you probably don't have to remove any covers at all on the newer model bikes. KTM have changed the way that the bolts and the mounts work up here, meaning he could redesign this rack to suit the later ones. It's a little bit of a downer on this in that this rack won't fit later model bikes because the mounting points have changed. Just a couple of things that I found. I did have to add a spacer into this exhaust mount bracket just to push the rack slightly to one side to get it centered on the bike. In the pictures I'm using a 10mm one, but I ended up going with about a 5mm spacer. It's not much, but it just made the back of it line up a little bit better. That's my OCD brain wanting things a little bit, you know, all lined up. And I also swapped out a couple of the supplied hex bolts with the rounded dome head bolts, just to, you know, remove any sharp edges around my boots and around this back one where the bags would be rubbing. Everything lined up perfectly. The rack clears all the plastics all the way around the bike. No dramas with clearances. So now let's get on with seeing how all my luggage systems fit on this rack. I'm going to be using these straps. They're called volley straps. I've got some Mosko Moto branded ones which are 20 inches long, and I've also got the original volley strap branded one, 32 inches long. I'm going to be using the 32-inch one because it works really well with these panniers. First cab off the rank will be the Mojavi saddlebags. These are the ones I use most of the time when I'm out riding. They're my day bags. Best way to do this for the smaller bags is to use these volley straps. You thread it through the daisy loops on the rack, one on each side. Then these Mojavi day bags, I believe the latest versions are actually using the volley straps for securing at the back. So that's what I'm going to use on mine. I have the smaller one on the back for mine. And you should be able to see how easy these straps are to do up. That's done up. The lower straps just feed straight into the, I think they're called the giant loop buckles at the bottom. Pull that one down. That's possibly all you need, but they do flap a bit, I've found, with these volley straps. That snugs the whole bag into that frame and it won't move. Just tuck the end bit in. Same on the other side. Tuck the end in. So you can see how that's mounted. We have a lower point there to the buckle. The top is just, it's just held on by the volley strap. The lower straps are pulling it forward so it can't go past the support leg, and down to the other side. Strap around the whole lot. That is solid as. Mosko Moto Reckless 40 bags, very similar to the giant loop ones. I'm using the little straps that are part of the mounting on the unit. Now I cut mine really short for some reason. It's making life difficult for me, but you'll get the gist of it. So that's the top mount done through the little daisy loops at the back. And again, using the volley strap, it just pulls the whole bag into that frame, into that rack really well. And that's it. Nice and firm there, not going to move anywhere there. firm there, it doesn't flap around. That's the Mosko Moto Reckless 40s. Next up is the giant loop. I think they're the Diablo system. These ones, these panniers. These ones actually belong to my brother. Similar to the others, there's two straps at the back. With these ones, I go under that frame, through that daisy loop. Now this one, it did actually mean I had to take the little buckle off to get that strap in and out. So that buckle there, that normally you would just wrap it under and around, but it just needed to come off so that it could go through that little daisy loop down there. So that holds it back. Same as the others, through that bottom mounting point, it's just far enough away to be able to strap it down properly. And then, same as the others, with the 32-inch volley strap, wraps around the frame and the bag and just pulls the whole lot in. This means it can't go anywhere. Now you may be able to actually wrap it around that rail there. That is the giant loop Diablo system. Now the Mosko 80s, this is what I kind of bought this for, kind of. This one did cause me a little bit more trouble because it's quite a long leg. Funny how we think we've got something right, we're happy with it, and you have a look at it in a different light, you speak to someone and you come up with different ways. That's exactly what's happened. So the thing that's changed is these little clips. For all of the other pannier systems, I have them rotated with the, like, facing upwards. For the Mosko 80s, they are rotated downwards. And on the right-hand side, I've actually come up with an extension because this mounting point on the right-hand side of the frame is higher than the left-hand side. When George made these racks, he's just followed the lines. So he didn't address any of this height difference. It wasn't really a thing back then, but now it's kind of a thing. So the solution is an extension piece. I'll have a bit more to say on these extensions in a bit. So when we load up the Mosko 80s now, you'll see all the difference that it makes. So I feed these straps kind of diagonal across under both of these bars. Come on, get in there. Up through those daisy loops. Pulling this base plate back as far as you possibly can on the rack. And now you can see that this clip is now below the bottom of the leg, which makes it perfect, in a perfect spot to tie off. Now the other thing that I did do with these Mosko bags is I replaced these bottom straps. I took out the factory straps that came with the Mosko 80s. They had a little piece of Velcro sewn on there and it just didn't work quite right. I couldn't get it close enough to this clip. So I've just replaced it with one of these luggage straps, cam band things. It just goes around the piece of steel that's inside the pannier, just loops straight through it, and that allows you to get the whole thing closer. And now that holds that perfectly. Around to the left-hand side, just with this clip rotated around, it is at the right height already, due to that height difference I spoke about before. And then to stop the whole thing flapping around, again we use the 32-inch volley strap. And that is the Mosko 80s. I'm happy with this for the third time. solid at the bottom, it's not going to move there. The strap just stops it flapping around and it pulls the bag right into this rack. Top mount through the two daisy loops. And that's it. Lastly are a set of panniers. They're Enduristan panniers. I don't know the size. I've had them for years. Haven't used them for years. Now I will say that these racks are not really designed for panniers. He does the pannier version, which has the extra loop, which gives it more support at the back. Gives it a squarer sort of a panel for the pannier to sit on. But it kind of works. If I had to make it work, I could make it work. And every pannier is different. You're just going to have to work it out. But I kind of worked out a way with these ones. This strap sort of held the back of it there. There's a bottom point on these panniers. It would go to this point. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's not going to be used by me, but you'd tie that off there. You could probably use a strap of some description just to hold the whole bag to the rack. You use the daisy loops to stop the strap from falling out. It's a bit floppy in this top corner, so you could like stuff an air mattress in there, and that then just holds the whole thing quite tight there. And if you tie down this other side and did the same on this side, and tied all these points down, it's actually quite solid and it's not going to move. Now, yep, the pannier racks would be a better version. If this is your setup and you want to carry panniers, you'd probably get the other rack. But I could make it work if I needed to. As I've hopefully shown you, this is quite a versatile rack. All of the major luggage systems will fit up on this thing, no problems. George also keeps up with the latest developments from some of those manufacturers. So for example, the Rotopax fuel cells will mount onto the top here. And he has also just created a strip with mounting holes to take the latest Mosko Moto Noblin device as well. So if you use that with your Mosko bags, this can cover it. A couple of other observations from me. I now no longer need the heat shield on the exhaust because the rack takes care of all that for me. There's plenty of handy grab rails now just to be able to lift the back of that bike up and move it out of a rut. I really like the angle that the straps pull down from the panniers rather than over here onto the frame. It's a much nicer angle. It also keeps that strap well away from a boot, so there's no more worn out straps where your boot's rubbing on it all the time. And just having the ability to wrap one of those volley straps right around the whole thing, it makes the whole thing neater and just far more secure. I also mentioned the extension pieces. This is the one that I made up, but George now makes them. So he's made a number of different sizes. They will cover all different size bags and they're all powder coated. They'll match up with all this and they'll look really good. So if you're after a rack for your bike, why not have a chat to George? You can just pick straight up the standard rack, or you can select some options like the daisy loops and the giant loop mounts, or you can talk to him and he will customize one to whatever you want. You want another loop in the middle of this rail here for some reason, he'll do it for you, no problems. Businesses like Globetrottin and George, they need our support. They give us options for products that just might not exist otherwise. And as a special discount to viewers of this channel, George is offering a 10% discount off the cost of the rack. Just put in the coupon code Keith10 when you're ordering, you'll get 10% off. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.